Hello, welcome to the July 21st, 2026 Club Cubase live stream. My name is Greg Undo, and I'm the host of the live stream today. If you've not attended a live stream before, how it works is you can just simply ask questions in the live chat field or send questions in advance to clubcubase at steinberg.de. When asking questions, realize that my ability to answer questions all in a real-time manner may soon not be possible with the number of questions that come in. But we will go through all of the questions chronologically in order as asked. When asking questions, it's always helpful if you could specify like which version of the Steinberg software you're using. So if it's Cubase, it could be Cubase LE, AI, Elements, Artist, or Pro. Also, if you could specify which version number, such as 13, 14, 15, that is helpful, as well as the operating system that you're using. So if you're on Mac OS or Windows, we should have an index of all of the topics that are discussed in today's live stream pinned to the top of the comments field several hours after the live stream ends. So you could quickly navigate to particular topics. If you want to search for topics that have been covered in previous live streams, you could go to cubaseindex.com. And we want to thank Jan from Stockholm for creating that website. It's a great resource of information. We search through over 2,000 hours of live streams with 45,000 different topics. We also have two people that serve as moderators, Jazz Dude and Agent K. They're not Steinberg employees. They just do it to make it a better community experience. So we'll give a special thanks to them. We'll extend additional gratitude to Jazz Dude for all of his work with the unofficial Cubase Nation Discord, which is a great place to find, different presets, tutorials, links, really helpful information that's, super beneficial for the Steinberg community. So check that out. So once again, my name is Greg Undo. I'm the host today. I'm presenting from just outside of, in the United States, just outside of Washington, D.C. in Alexandria, Virginia. And if you're watching us live, please feel free to introduce yourself and tell us where you're from. And with that, we will go ahead and get started. Okay. So we see Flyvy on his question. With Wavelab, says I have a completed audio montage in Wavelab. How can I properly export? And what's single or multi? So I guess the question you have to ask is, what are you trying to export it to do? Are you trying to do an audio CD? Do you want individual files? Do you want one WAV file that kind of encompasses the entire audio montage? So let's come over here. We'll open up Wavelab quickly. Okay, so let's say we have my montage here. Let's say my songs. In my montage, we can okay, so when we want to export the montage, so a montage can be we could think of this as your album. So if it's going to be a CD, if it's however your final delivery format is, some people may choose to have like an album as one song, so that you have to pay for one particular song, and they can make that one song the same cost as an album. That's an early streaming trick, so you don't buy just one song from an artist. But if kind of what the ultimate goal is, and where do you want to have the material go to? So when we come over here, let's go to our file menu, and when we go to export, at this point, we see our montage, and we can see single or multi. And the question is, so single would be that would convert the whole audio montage into one WAV file. So your multiple 6 or 7 songs, or how many project songs are in your montage, would all be rendered to a single file. If we wanted each of those songs to be rendered, but to have them as separate files where we could maybe upload each individual file to like a streaming platform, at that point we would choose multi. And then we could have those files named or unnamed, probably named, makes sense. So when we export, so if you were burning a CD, we would just come over and we would, do our album. And then as we would, come over here to your file menu to export, you could also choose to export your montage to an audio CD or DVD-A if you wanted to. So figure out exactly kind of like what files you need to export where, kind of the final delivery stage is going to be. So a single file would take all of the songs in the montage and render them as one audio file, and that's desired at times. Or you may want to have these rendered, have them all within a montage with their timings, but still render each file separately. And that's what a multi is. Great. See Michael Marshall on from Somerset in the UK. It says, thanks for email, Greg. Helped him with a problem we'll go over a little bit later for the benefit of others. We have Stefan from Sweden as well. We have Uno Memento from Finland, Adam Langford from Bedfordshire, UK. Thanks for joining. All right, we see Val was able to get on early from Vienna. Great to see you on. All right, Patrick with 4Ks asks, I was wondering if there was a way I could record incoming MIDI data from a MIDI send. Thank you for all your help over the years. All right, so let's see. We'll give it a try. So let's say if I here, let's say we'll take our, and let's say I want to add another instrument track to this. Let's just do like dude. Okay, so now, so let's say I want to take my MIDI send. Okay, I had to start with a MIDI track for MIDI send. So let me just add the track here. Okay. All right, so we have this Rhodes here. And now I want to go to my MIDI sends. And let's say now I want to send that Rhodes to the Etude piano. All right, so we come here, let's turn on our MIDI send. And let's send this to, rename this so I can find it easier. Okay, so let's say I want to put an arpeggio on a piano. So I'll come here, I'll play a chord. Great. so now as we kind of play the chords here in this MIDI, and I'll just drag the chords down here. Okay, so come here, let's play. Sorry. All right, so as we play this MIDI, so you might be able, so, you know, I know with the, let's see if there's a way if we capture the incoming MIDI here. Right, so it's transmitting, it's not necessarily going into see if I just create MIDI part here. So if it was a MIDI insert, we could print and record that. But let's see if I come over here to these MIDI modifiers. Yeah, I don't think it's able to record the output. I'll take a look again. Come here. So it's going out to, but I don't think that the sends are kind of going into the track level, but they're kind of populating there. I mean, if we wanted to, you know, do that for a MIDI insert, so if we had kind of the same MIDI effect as an insert here, so let's say I take this arpeggiator and, you know, if I wanted to record the insert of that, so let's say this is now, when we have the etude, we'll just put the chord track on its monitor tracks. So with a MIDI insert, I could come over and let's take the arpeggiator. And once I move this line down, then we could record kind of that we could record, you know, the MIDI arpeggiator here, you know, and as we hit record at that point, but I don't think this sends. So, but it doesn't look like the MIDI sends will do it. There may be a way of doing kind of a loop back, but nothing that's native inside of Cubase. And if you let me know if you have Mac or Windows, I might be able to, you might be able to send it out of a MIDI loop back and loop it back in, but that could be a little convoluted. So, all right, wonderful to see Beverly Beatty from Vancouver. It looks like she's in Manchester, UK, and she doesn't have a cowbell. So. A colleague of mine lives in Manchester. All right, so we see Benny from Sweden, who's now in Cyprus. Thanks for joining us. See Tim K joining from Netherlands, and Zeist. His cat Buddy is waving a paw hello to my cat Steven, who's asleep on my couch behind me. To all the other pets nearby. All right, we have Brian Sawyer checking in from Yuma, Arizona. All right, so we see Soren, and Soren had asked about how to set deadlines for a project to get them completed. and says the push with deadline is ongoing. I'm working on the song, so it's good. Can't wait to hear them and let us know when it's released so we could all listen to it. All right, we see Tim Weinheimer joining from Mission Viejo. We have Roland Stuff joining from Sussex in UK. Tim Weinheimer just makes a comment. Says, I've been using WaveLab lately a lot. So many great things to do. Finishing up a project, learning a lot more time I spend with WaveLab. All right, we see Taylor checking in from Pine Grove, Pennsylvania. Great for you to be able to join us today. All right, Jackie Barr says, I'm having trouble how to handle inserts/sends in Cubase 15 Pro. I used to be able to drag to move vertically in console. Also, I was copying to another track using Alt Drag, not working now. All right, so let's take a look. Let's say we'll just get to our console here. Make this a little taller. See our inserts. Okay, so let's say if I want to, so I don't think it really sends are going to the same area or going to the same destination, regardless if it's in send 1 or 2. So if I want to copy a particular plugin, I'm going to hold down my Alt or Option key, and then I can make a copy. So let's say if I undo that. So let's say I will just kind of check like this plugin here. Let's say I'll just put this parameter all the way down, all the way to the top. So if I want to copy the plugin with those particular settings, I can come over here, hold down Alt or Option and copy. So when I open up this plugin, we can see that those settings will be preserved. If I want to copy multiple plugins, I can come over here. So let's grab just the top area here and be multiple plugins. I thought it was same command. Try on a different track. Okay, so if from this, maybe the track has to be selected. So let's say if I have this track selected here and I grab from the top, get it from here. Right, just grabbing just the inserts. Could also be, let's see if I have it in the Alt. Okay, so let's try just dragging it over. So if I come here, see if the track needs to be selected, if that makes a difference. Okay, so say you drag this. Right, so if I just kind of hold down the left mouse button as I do the drag, so come here. So instead of just hold down the left mouse button. A little inconsistent. So let me. I don't think you want to, I think. Try to figure out the logic of it. Okay, so that's just holding down the left mouse button, dragging it to the next insert slot. Say this is our selected track. Sometimes it seems like the Alt Option key is doing it, so let me see if I could figure out just the. So let's come here. Okay, so it looks like this could be a subtle change. So if you come here, hold down the left mouse button, maybe scroll elsewhere, then hold down the Alt key. And then you could just kind of drag over the particular track. So let's try to again here. So I can take this. I move the mouse button down. So hold the left mouse button down and select here. Let me see if there's a special spot to click on. But as soon as you drag downward, then come over, hold down the Alter option, drag it to the tracks want, and then that will make a copy. Now with sends, I don't think that you really have to do any copying because the sends aren't serial. The sends will be parallel. So if I come over here and I want this to go, to a revelation on a different track, I could just come right over here and we could say, okay, when we go to, your effects at that point, you could just feed it to the same destination as well. So, but yeah, try, and again, just come over, hold the mouse button down. See if it's a special area to click on insert name. Then you could, it's a little finicky. Let me see if it changes colors or any indication. But kind of play around that LC. So there, I could now just drag it over again. So maybe as soon as you start moving. Okay, so I think if we do this, sorry, it's taking me a while to figure this out. So try moving it horizontally, then hold down the Alt or Option key and drag it over a different track. So move it horizontally, and that seems to work pretty consistently like that. Sorry for completely messing that up and not figuring it out. Again, click on the Inserts tab here, move horizontally, and then you can just hold down the Alt or Option key and drag. So let me know if that's helpful for you. Open that project since I populate it with lots of different inserts that will sound odd for that. All right, so let's move on. Sorry, it took me a little while to figure it out. All right, so we see from Music for World Peace Records, can Tonalic full version be used in Cubase 12? So yeah. So if you have the full version and you just get the 12.03, and then you'd see your Tonalic show up directly over here. So whatever particulars, I think this is the Tonalic, and then you can come over here and have full access to it. So I believe that just depending on your level will be access to, you know, the higher the level, the more content that you'll get to utilize with your Tonalic inside of Cubase. All right, so we see, is there a way to name mix console snapshots in Cubase Pro 12? Okay, so let's come over here. Let's say, get to a full screen mixer. I want to take a snapshot here, right? And let me move all these faders down. Okay, I'll take another snapshot. So if you're not familiar with snapshots, you can just quickly navigate to and from different views. Right, so let's see if we could name the snapshots. So great. See snapshot 1 and 2. It doesn't look like there's an area to rename it. Just if I come here, let's click on the snapshots tab here, and then just double click, say verse chorus. So after you have, so you probably won't see it in the lower zone mix console. So the lower zone mix console, we can have snapshots, but you may have to be in the full screen mixer, or if you hit F3, and then you'll see your snapshot tab at the top, then you could just double click. Brings back fond memories. Going to the Halloween, I went to the Halloween parade there with my aunt, a little kid. All right. So we see what changes have been made to mix key since the beta version. So, you know, I think that there's just more kind of system stability. I don't think that there's any kind of major features, but, you know, just coming up with, you know, like maintenance or maintenance issues and a couple of like minor feature enhancements, but there hasn't been any. I don't recall any like significant, oh, now it does this since, you know, the release that wasn't in the initial version. So, all right. So we see Pastoral Apologetics from Southeast Texas, who's in the house and excited to learn. All right. So we see, my chat field just jumped on me. It says, what new features are in Spectral Layers 13? So, you know, there's going to be, so once we're utilizing Spectral Layers, you know, there's more like for post-production, there's going to be like improved dialogue separation. So if you have two people that are doing an interview, you're able to, isolate and kind of unmix the two different voices. So it could just simply utilize that for post production. One of the, there are quality improvements to the overall separation. So, if you're doing unmixing, also for the modules, there's going to be unmixed soundtrack. So if you have sound effects from a movie that, let's say like someone had a whoosh type of sound effect in their file, you could unmix sound effects from the dialogue. So in just overall kind of more improvements of the algorithms are always, you know, being improved and optimized. So, but probably the two big things were going to be unmixed two voices for like an interview, and unmixed sound effects, and just overall improvements in the algorithm and more optimizations for latest operating systems and processors. All right, so we see Pastoral Apologetics. Is it possible to use de-reverb in spectral layers for sung vocals in less than optimal conditions? I don't really have a file to show it, but yeah, so when you get to the modules, there is kind of the de-reverb plugin. So if you have a lot of room reflections on your vocal recording, that could help kind of isolate to just kind of the initial portion that's hitting the microphone. So, but yeah, play around with that. I don't think any of those are like a perfect, like, turn on one click fix, but it could, save a lot of time. And, perhaps projects that were unusable can now become very usable. Right, Parabot2 from Australia asks, "Hi Greg, having an issue after I cut a section of audio. I want to bring the gain down on that selection. The slider to lower the audio is not showing up on a clipped audio. Thanks." All right, so let's say I have this. Great. All right, so generally it's, it could be maybe it's, maybe it's if it's like a really, tight edit and you've done a cut like that, maybe it doesn't pop up. You could access the gain a couple different ways. One is just from the info line using the volume control. I think if we hold down like command or control plus the shift key, that you can just come right over here and adjust, and you see how the icon, the selection tool icon becomes like for clip gain. You could adjust it right there as well. Now, it could also be if you have cut an event, and let's say, okay, come over here, and if you've glued events together, so let's say if I come here and I've now glued these events together, and let's say, okay, split, make one other thing that could be if the clips are joined. Do this real quick here. That, if you don't see it, make sure that it's not in a part as well. So I will come over and we'll just show this. Sometimes you may have like, there's an event editor, which will, when you double click, goes to the sample editor, and there's also a part editor. So if I've cut different parts together, put this project up real quick. So if we have cut multiple parts together, so let's say if I come here, and now as I work, if these were at some point glued, together, and you've made a cut. You may not see, you may just see like only one volume control or kind of the whole clip. But now if you double click and you go into the part editor, you could, so if it's a part, you could now come in and adjust. So we can think of a part as a collection of events. This could be helpful for doing different types of editing. So double click and see if it's in a part editor. If it's a part and you wanted to migrate back to an event so that you could just do the gain changes directly there, you could go to your audio menu and choose to dissolve part. And now you could have the clip gain changes just for the one portion in the middle like this. So if it could also maybe have migrated, depending on your editing, into a part. And once you have that part, then you could dissolve the part or double click and go into the part editor for clip gain changes and fade ins and fade outs. Okay, so we see, hi Greg, how can I export multi-track drums for use in another project and have them follow the tempo for the new project? Thanks, any info. All right, so let's open up a quick project. Clear my throat. Great. Okay, so we'll take a portion of our files here. Okay, so say we want to take, so we have these files that are going to be 100 beats per minute. So I'm going to take these drums here. All right, so let's go ahead and export these. So I'm going to make sure first that the files themselves, when we go to our pool window, that we have a tempo stamp. So when the files are recorded into Cubase, a tempo stamp is applied to them. So you can see that all of our files here are 100 beats per minute. Right, so we have a tempo stamp. So let me go ahead and just, I'll do a batch export of these drums. Okay, so we'll do, it's like 8 bars of it for time sake. I'm going to do my export audio mix down. And we're going to choose multiple. We'll choose, say, all my drums. Okay, let's put these into our desktop. Okay, so I'll export these. My Finder window. Okay, so we have all of these drums. So I'm going to do a new project. We'll make it an empty project, and we're going to import those particular files. I'll just drag them over, go on separate tracks. Okay, so we have our files here. So let's say my tempo of my current project. So we were at 100 beats per minute. So what I need to do is to have these go into like a follow tempo mode. We'll call this musical mode. So now, so at that point, once they're imported into the project here, they could all be placed again into musical mode. And we could do that also by going to the pool, Control P or Command P, making sure that they're in musical mode here. And now at that point, when I change my tempo, they're all going to follow the tempo of the project. So that's all you have to do. So when you import them into the project, you could select all the files and you could just come right over here, put all the files into musical mode, or go into the pool window and select all your files here, and you can put them all into musical mode here or not as well. So once you have that, then it's going to follow the tempo of the project. Uno momento wants people to whack the like button. All right, so we see from the clear my throat one more time. All right, you see a question from the Real Mellow Fellow. It says playback when pressing play has a microsecond delay. All right, so if I do this and let's say if I have just my, the delay is going to be based on the latency of your system. So when I hit the space bar, I'll move my microphone closer so you can hear the audio and hear me hitting the space bar. Now, if I increase the buffer size of my audio interface, let's say I'm probably at 512 samples now, and if I move this to 4,096 samples, that latency will be also noticeable when I hit my transport. So when I hit my transport, so your buffer size is one thing, and that's the overall latency on the system. Now, something else that could cause high latency is if you are actually have plugins on your system as well. So let's say I come over here to my master fader, and let's say I have lots of plugins. I'll just pick a couple that are kind of high in latency. So the vocal chains, like about maybe 300 milliseconds of latency for that. Okay, so now our buffer is set to where it's originally. But when we look at, let's say if I come over here to my channel latency, we can see that this has 708 milliseconds of latency just because of these plugins. So when I now play, so the transport will be affected by, the plugins that are available in the system and the particular, and the buffer size of the audio interface, and those can be coupled together. So let me know if that helps, Real Mellow Fellow. Thanks for joining us today. All right, so we have Horatio, Maciel saying hello, good. Audi Lee joining from Austria. Great to see you on. Val is happy to see a fellow Austrian on. All right, Horatio asked, when will it be dubbed in Spanish? So if you go to, let's say if I pop over here, let's just go to, while the voice isn't going to be dubbed in Spanish, you can, if you, so I don't think that's fully rolled out from YouTube yet, but if you go to like previous live stream here, and let's say if we start playing this back, all right, so if you go to the closed captioning, and then you could, I think when we go to like the closed captioning setup here, let me just, there's settings, so we go to subtitles. Here you could choose different languages. So activate the closed captions, the CC. Then I believe you can switch the subtitles. Let's see if we come here. I just did it just the other day. So let's say we'll auto translate. So let's say if you want to Cubase in Latin. Funny and many. All right, so let's say I just want to come over here. And so now as you could see the closed captioning in Spanish and other languages. So while it's not translating in real time, I will see if there's if it's possible. I know it's kind of rolling out on some live streams, but you can switch the closed captioning languages here as well if you want to. So if you go, so I'm not sure if those closed captions are real time or if it's just generated afterwards, but you could maybe try that. Great. Sorry, I wish I was better at languages. My 8th grade Spanish teacher would be disappointed in me. All right. So we see Rick from Bratman Studio joining us from Whittier, California. Thanks for being online. All right, so we see Doughboys. Does anyone have any info and features in Cubase 16 going to have? So generally, they don't announce new features until it's actually released. That way, you don't have the anticipation factor. And also, we've had for so many years other companies copy what we do, so we don't necessarily want to, tip our hat to competitors as well. I'm sure. Right. Memento checking in, see how Brion's flight was from Charlotte, Yuma, Arizona. And just one quick programming note, just want to remind everyone, we won't be having a live stream on Friday. Just have to do something in the afternoon. So just, so we'll resume our normal schedule next week, and we'll have our end of month live stream on Friday, the 31st, with our Club Cubase Zoom social meetup. Right, so Jackie Barr says, yes, it seems finicky since the last update, the dragging and dropping of inserts and sends. So now I think, I know what to do. So let's say, again, if we come over here, just move it vertically or horizontally first and then drop, then you're okay with that. So I think that's not too bad once you know the trick, but those little tricks, I guess, keep me employed. I can figure it out for you. Great. All right, from Beverly BD asks, great question. I copied part of a WAV file out, but I heard the volume increase for no apparent reason and no automation was on tracks. What caused this? If they got doubled, how would I know? All right, so let's say if we have part of a WAV file, here, so let's say I'll take this. Excuse me, and I'm just gonna put like a clip gain here. All right, so let's just come over. I'm gonna take just a portion, this audio file, drag it over. So you said there's no automation. Heard the volume increase for no apparent reason. No automation was on tracks. What caused? Make sure, generally if you don't, if there's no automation, just make sure that, you don't see any automation. That would be one culprit. Let's see if we come over and let's say if I have clip gain on that section, let's see if I copy this portion, if the clip gain is maintained. Looks like it is. So let me try just, I'm right over here. I don't know if there's any like dynamics plugins perhaps. So if it's copied on the same track, it could be like, if you have a compressor on this particular track here. So let's say if I was playing back this particular clip here. All right, so say I have this clip playing, and let's say I have a compressor on this. So I'm just going to add, let's say, add an audio track below. So let's say on this track, I have my channel compressor. So I'll just come over here to my inserts, sorry, and all right, so if I have that, and let's say I copy this clip to play on this track. That could make a difference overall between, so if you copied it on the same track, then if you have your dynamics processing going on this track, but not this track, that could impose, that could cause differences in the gain. So let me know if you copied it on the same track or if it's on different tracks, because the processing and plugins and EQ on one track could make it seem louder than if it's on a different track without those processes. All right, so we see Mark Rabin just saying, "What? Hi everyone, we're on Mondays now. I think it's Tuesday." Yeah. Then working hard on his new product release. So see, Mark Rabin says, "Oh my, I got to get out of the studio." See, Jazz Dude posted a link. Thank you for that, for new feature highlights in Spectral Layers 13. Okay, so Mark Rabin says, okay, today I want to get a better handle. I really want to get a better handle on groove quantize. It seemed to be lacking some nugget of knowledge. What I see is a missing part of my cookbook. All right, so let's just do a very simple pattern. Close this project out. All right, so let's build like a really basic drum beat here. All right. Okay, so we'll come to our acoustic agent. Great, so we'll come over, we'll build a quick drum map for the acoustic agent kit. Okay, so, getting grooves is always a good thing. So let's say if you want to figure out how to do kind of more groove quantize on a particular part. All right, so just come over here. Let's start with our kick. This in the loop here. All right, so not the most exciting sounding. So let's say, okay, we'll just do this as eighth notes, All right, so I'll just kind of take this and we'll just quantize. All right, and I'll just make this more, let's do 16th notes here. Okay, so let's say, all right, so very kind of like, your drum machine program from 1989. All right, so let's say now I want to throw in, let's say just a little bit of, we'll throw an extra. All right, and let's just go ahead and just view our sounds already out. All right, so let's apply a quantize. So if we apply just a normal quantize to everything, say, okay, make everything 16th notes, it's not so exciting. But we could also apply swing. Now we could have swing on the actual part. So let's say if I'm here, I go to the track, one of the MIDI plugins that we could do. So if you're working with MIDI only, you could just come over here and use the quantizer plugin. So here we could just say, okay, I want to adjust the swing. This doesn't affect, and you hear it especially on the hi-hats. So very machine-like, very precise. And now you have that infectious little groove just because of the swing. So we could think of this as being like very suburban to urban. So we could do that on the actual, so we don't see the notes shift because that's just being processed in real time. But if we wanted to apply that to our groove quantize, we could now just come over here and say, okay, let's go to our quantize swing. And let's say, okay, let's make it 85, just so it's obvious. We can see that our grid has changed visually here. So if I go, okay, let's make it 0, we can see that our green vertical lines here are indicating our velocity swing. So if we watch as I hit 85, I hit enter. And now you could just say, let's apply that quantize. And you could just kind of keep applying that quantize. And if we have soft quantize on, this would kind of move it ever so slightly. Now, sometimes when you want to work with swing, also just coming over here and just saying, okay, I want to adjust the hi-hat velocity. And just take like every other hi-hat. That can also kind of give you just that emphasis, and the dynamics can also make that feel, give it kind of a swing without actually altering any of the timing as well. So kind of play around, and then if you wanted to, just come over here and, you could adjust kind of, the catch range where it actually does it, where it won't be applied for quantizing, So, but just kind of come right over here, and that will give you kind of an idea. So, build a simple drum beat and apply swing to it, and that way you could hear the difference and say, okay, when this is happening, that's why this drum feels different, and you have the before and after that you could just simply undo. All right, so Jackie Barr asks, one other new issue is trying to drag an effect from the right zone straight into the channel. It's hard to tell where exactly to drop it. It doesn't replace, so it doesn't replace another existing effect. Okay, so let's say I have like this guitar part, and let's say I have an insert. Okay, so let's come over here. So let's say I have my Magneto plugin on. All right, so I'm going to drag and drop an effect plugin. So we'll come over here to Media, to VST Effects. So let's say, okay, I want my Pultec style EQ. So if we just drag it onto the track here, that will automatically get placed underneath. So just dragging onto the track. So you see we have this track header. If I drag it between tracks, that will add an effects channel. All right. If I drag it directly onto the track, we'll see that our inserts will just get populated, and this will drop into the next slot. Now let's say I want to take, this plugin, let's say my auto pan. I see my inserts available here. So let's try to drag it between the magneto and the Pultec style EQ. So now I just drag this over. I'll put it there. So now we could just drag it onto the slot and the other plugins. So I'm going to put it after the EQ. And then we could just automatically place the particular plugin on the slot that we want to. So if I go to the bottom, it gets added to the bottom, so we could just come over here and again, just drag it to a particular slot. Or if you want the plugin to get dragged directly, just to the next available insert slot, just drag and that will automatically populate it to the last insert slot for you. So let me know if that makes sense for you. Quick way of getting rid of plugins, just to kind of drag them and kind of throw them elsewhere, and then the plugin will disappear. Great. Everyone give Mark Rabin a big woof for his dog Stella. I forgot to do that earlier. Reminding me uno momento. See, Mark Rabin's just gotten some new congas to play. He's having fun with them. That field jumped. Mark Rabin is curious if everyone wants to kind of share what their main instrument is. Bass, or on trumpet, electric bass, and upright bass, double bass. All right, you see Jazzud shared a video, Steinberg Spotlight video with Bear McCreary. You see Batman Studio says, yeah, that Bear McCreary video is interesting. I also like the one screen with 3 rows of faders off to the side. Yeah, he works fast. So, very nice guy, does great work. Full studio setup that he has. All right, Jacques Corb asks, hi, the options on saving a template is not working depending on what you choose. Anyone found the same issue? So let's say if I wanted to save this as a template, so I will come right over here. I'm just going to do save as template. So let's come over. I'll give it a name. We'll call it July 6th. July 21st, rather. Okay, so now when I hit okay, I've saved this as a template, and when we go to the hub, now something has kind of changed with the hub is, one, make sure that you have the templates open, so you can have recent projects and templates. So we'll come over here to your templates, and once you have the templates, there's different choices for kind of factory or user templates. If you click right here, you say, let's get to your user templates, and here's my template that I just created. So at this point, you could have user templates as well as factory templates, or to see all. Sometimes people may just see their recent projects and not realize that they could expand their templates here as well, and then filter between factory and user, or show all templates. So let me know if that's helpful, or if you're still having issues with templates, but that was one of the changes that came in 15. Do some discussions about doing vocals for your demos. We've been checking out with Jazz Dude. All right, we see Tiago joining from Brazil. See you on. All right, we see from Broad Angles, it says Cubase is the best. I think it's pretty cool too. All right, so we see it's around 25 degrees where Jazz Dude is, and it's cooling down in the UK. All right, so we see Tiago just mentioned it. Steinberg team's investigating free warp aligning in projects. I saw the email you sent, so I don't really have the ability to, I don't have access to the support systems to automatically track cases, but I'm glad it's looking at it for you. All right, so we see from Mark Rabin, who's just mentioning the language captioning. Says language captioning, think about how that actually works. See some discussion of uninstallers. Iago says, sorry for the typo, guys. Always fighting with Portuguese language correction. So funny that it, that the typo is typo. Irony is great. All right, so we have Klaus joining from Malmo, Sweden. You don't have to apologize for being late. You just have to hit the like button. All right, so we see Taylor from World Peace Records says soon AI will be able to translate your voice into Spanish or any other language in real time with the actual sound of your voice. So I know that they are rolling it out for YouTube, for YouTube live sessions like this. I'll check with kind of our social media team who to see if it's been implemented. Sometimes it rolls out and it's not offered to everyone, but and sometimes it just will show up as an option available in the live streams. I haven't looked in the last maybe 2 or 3 months to see if it's an option that's available for us, but I'll look into it. But yeah, it'd be so great for people in other countries to be able to have it live translated. But if anyone, I'm not sure if it does the captions, the closed captions live, but if anyone, like the one I did was from a previous live stream. But if anyone just tries the closed captions live to see if that works, or I'm not sure if it goes through it afterwards and does analysis of it. All right, so we see Mark Rabin just says, thanks for taking my question, Greg. Gratitude and woof. I think he just wanted me to say woof for Stella. But you're always welcome, Mark. It's so wonderful to see you on the live stream. I hope your product launch is going very well and successful for you. All right, Audi Lee says, hi, Greg. What happens, technically speaking, when you record a mono audio signal on a mono track versus a stereo track? So the big difference is there's no difference in the recording. It could be just kind of like the processing. So let's take this particular track here. So I want to just solo this guitar part. So we have this guitar, and I'm going to place it onto a mono track. All right, so all right, and we'll just have it completely dry. So I can pan it, from my right to my left channel as expected. Now the big difference is if I put an insert effect, because we're on a mono channel, if I put an insert effect, that insert will be mono. So let's say if I go to put on a stereo delay, we'll go to our studio delay and we'll do like a ping pong delay. So now we don't really get the ping pong. Let's put on a reverb. So we'll come over, let's put on just a bit of reverb to say reverence. As we now that reverb is in mono. All right, so what we could do if we wanted to take this, so if I was doing effects as inserts and wanted them to be processed in stereo, like maybe like for a guitar part going through like, stereo delays. So I'm going to switch this just by, you will see this little channel configuration. So I'm going to come over here and I switch to stereo. Now the effect and the channel is in stereo. So when we listen to it, it may not be as exciting. Because now our reverb is in mono. Now the reverb's in stereo. Let's do the same with the effects. So now we go to mono. So now we can hear the echoes ping pong off each other. So sometimes, in the past, what people would have to do, I think this changed in 13 maybe, what they would have to do if they wanted a stereo plugin, they would just send it to a send, and the send could be stereo. So the mono could be going to a stereo send. And I've also found certain people that, specifically want, a mono reverb. I remember getting a call from Peter Frampton, and, he was trying to, it's like, oh, I just want, this guitar to have, I don't want a stereo reverb. I want the guitar to be in a separate space than the background vocals in this part of the song. And I want a stereo reverb in the background vocals, but not on the particular guitar part, because it was kind of, didn't sit as well in the mix. So that way, when you're working with a mono or stereo, the audio is going to be treated the same way. But the big difference is the insert effect processing is going to be different. So there's a lot of people that choose just to have the that choose, that wants to load every effect as an insert. And there's advantages. It's kind of quick and easy. Many don't realize that the inserts are serial. So, the audio goes in, gets processed in the first insert to the second to the third. So all of the effects can get compounded. But the big difference between a mono channel configuration and stereo configuration is like the channel width, the channel configuration for insert effects. So. Right, so we see clarification from Beverly. Just says that the louder sections of audio after copying is copying on the same track and posting several measures later. I ended up copying different segment and pasting it to avoid the loudness increase. If you have a particular file, that if it comes up again, or if you have like a small project that you could share with me, I'd be happy to take a look at it for you, Beverly. And you could send that to clubcubase@steinberg.de. Guys, dude's giving advice to insert more time, invest more time into the MIDI inserts and using them to cascade. All right, so we see Prayful Saxena or Proful Saxena. Hello, sir. How to clear the total basic idea to operate Cubase, including drum track creation, edit. If anyone has knowledge about it, please share. All right, so let's say we want to just, do a brand new project. We just want to start off with like a drum track. Okay, so I think I have just an empty drum track already here. All right, so we have our drum machine. So the drum machine isn't a plugin. It's just actually installed directly with Cubase, just a part of Cubase. So it's like deeply integrated. So we come over here, we could say, okay, I want to add a drum track. Once we add that drum track, it will look like this. So we'll start completely from scratch. All right, so we're going to add, so we just add track. Let's go to our drum track, and we could choose to make this a pattern event. So when we load up the drum machine itself is just going to be the sounds, and that can be coupled with the patterns if you wanted to, with the pattern editor, as we choose here between a MIDI part or a pattern event. So as soon as we click here, to actually program parts, it's going to be done in the pattern editor. So I'm going to come over here. Let's say, okay, I want to just add a track. All right, so let's say on C1, I want a bass drum. All right, so we select a bass drum. All right, so now when I want to change the pitch, we can make that long, so let's tune it. All right, let's put a snare onto D1. All right, so we'll say, okay, let's put snare. All right, so when I click here on the pad, I can adjust. I can adjust kind of the parameters of the kick when I click on the snare pad. So let's say, okay, I want to come here. Let's adjust. Let's put a hi-hat in. And for Beverly, since I always forget to incorporate cowbells for her, we will now come over and we'll put in 2 cowbells to make up for the last 800 times I forgot to put cowbells in for Beverly. All right, so let's say we're happy with our sounds and we could keep adding sounds. So even if you wanted to have noise, if you wanted to come over and put like, or just take samples. So let's say, okay, I want to come over to, look for samples on my hard drive. So I come over here, say, okay, we have, let's just pop over to favorites. So I can say, okay, I want that snare. So I could just drag samples. So this is kind of a hybrid samples plus synthesis. All right. All right, so now we have our sounds. Let's say we're happy with the sounds. We could also add effects. So when I come here, I could say, okay, let's select our snare and let's just add reverb. And let's say on our cowbell, I'm going to select my cowbell. Let's put a delay. So we have built-in effects. So let's say on that particular sound, we'll add a bit of delay as well. And if we wanted to edit the delay, we could just simply come right over here and say, okay, we can say, okay, what type of delay time do we want? Let's say we want more of an eighth note delay. Okay. So now we have our sounds. Let's build a pattern. So I'm going to come here and we click on editor. All of my sounds that I've created have now shown up. We could choose our number of steps here. So let's say, okay, I want to do 32 steps, right? So now when we hit play, let me just see if I just have this, make sure we have this soloed. So we'll just come over to drum machine. All right, so I'm gonna hit play and I can say, okay, I want my kick drum, and we can say, let's put 4 on the floor. Okay, so let's go to my snare, and I want to do 4th, but I want these to shift over. So I could come over here, let's just shift our snares. All right, let's put in, let's say, our closed hi-hat we want every second. And maybe some points I want to just put in all right, so we could also say, okay, how about every third time I want a cowbell, and I want to adjust the velocity of the cowbell. So I want to do like polyrhythms. Let's come over to, let's say, our snare. So let's put in this snare here every and we could also just kind of randomly put in our different sounds here. We could do this by Euclidean patterns, where we could just or we could just have it completely random as well. And let's go back to, let's say, our drum machine, and I want to adjust my delay time. Let's make our delay 16th note delays to see what it does. And maybe we'll just adjust our delay time on the instrument. So now we could come over here and, if we want to start a new pattern, we could just click on plus and build a new pattern. And we could also just have this completely randomly generated as well. So I could just come here and I could augment. And if I wanted to have something, let's say this, our snare drum to do like polyrhythms, instead of doing like 5, I could say, let's just do 16. I could say, let's do 10. And now I could just have so at this point we could just say, okay, I want this lane here. We could say, let's double the step resolution of the lane. So now I could just switch this to 30-second notes on the hi-hat. Now, once these patterns are done, I could have them, they obviously will play in sync with the project, but we could also just drag these patterns to our drum track. So we can say, okay, I want this to be pattern 1, and then I want the next 3 to be pattern 2. And then if I copy this out, I can say, okay, this one I want to be pattern 1, pattern 2, pattern 1. And now the internal sequencer will shut off here. And we could see kind of our different portions. So that's how you could kind of build up sounds using the drum machine and then create patterns creatively using the pattern editor. So let me know if that's helpful for you to get started. All right, my chat field jumped. And just see a quick comment from Jazz Dude while we're here. Or just see a comment from Gerald Ely. Says, dragging plugins from the media bay onto the track is my tip of the day so far. Great. And while we're still here, Jazz Dude says, don't forget the modulators as a pitch modifier for hi-hats. Yeah, so that's a great point. So let's say if I'm here and we're playing this pattern, and I'll just do a new pattern here. We'll do like a really basic. Okay, so let's say we'll just come over here. So if you want to have like more interest, you know, one of the things that you could do also in this drum machine is we could say, okay, I want to take this hi-hat and let's find our tuning. Okay, so we'll just so at that point we could just take our tuning, and if we wanted to come over, we could say we could go to our pattern editor here and we'll say assign to a step modulation. So what we could do now is I could see like where I have my velocity, we could now just adjust the tuning. Or you could also use modulators to randomize this as well. So now if we go back to our drum machine, we can say, okay, we have kind of our level, and we can see that. We could also have that change, but also modulators where you could kind of automate automation of different parameters there. All right, so we see Rick from Batman Studios says, speaking of quantizing and helping formulate new ideas, take 3 instruments, bass, drums, and piano, then play with different quantizing modes in all 3, you get completely new songs. All right, so we see Jackie Bar says, yes, it makes total sense about the slots, but many times it writes over one instead of inserting it between two. Not sure what I'm doing wrong. I'll keep playing with it. All right, so let's take I'll make this a little larger, so it's dragging the effects out. Okay, so let's grab an effect, see if we could recreate that. So we'll go here to Media, click home, let's get to our effects. All right, so let's say I have DJ EQ as an insert, and I'll put the M5 EQ as a second. And let's say I want the EQ P1A to go in between those two. Just come right over here, so I'm going to place it on the second one, and then it automatically just places it right in the middle. So play around with it and just know that, like, when you place on a slot, now it could be like if it's a when they do get replaced is if you're replacing a track preset. So let's say if I come over here and we go to presets and we go to, let's say, a track preset audio, and if I drag the track preset over to that track, then it will get replaced. So as soon as I come over here, say if I have this on an audio file, so now like on an audio track, so if I had an audio track preset, that when I drag a track preset over, that replaces it. But the individual plugins shouldn't replace that. All right, so we see that Tim K's cat buddy is back napping. Cat's been asleep since 10 in the morning. Bit of a night owl. All right, Peter Raymond says, hi, trying to set up shortcuts for show all tracks and show all tracks with data, but found available options, verbiage confusing. Hope you can help. Okay, let's get a different project here. Okay, and I'll just add the number of tracks in between here. Okay, so we have tracks here that are set up for that have no data and our tracks. So let's look for our keyboard shortcuts. I think it's going to be under channel visibility configuration. Might be under the mixer section as well. Configuration. Let's get the correct terminology here. Of Okay, so let's do show tracks with data. Okay, so we'll say this will be our one keyboard shortcut here. So say program. So this will show all tracks with data. Okay, so when I hit that key command, we see that those tracks disappear. All right, now let's look for the other one. It could be an undo visibility change. Might be the So I think if you just do you undo the visibility configuration, so I'll come here to show all channels and tracks. Sign that. Okay, so under channel and track visibility settings. Right, so we'll show all of my channels, and now the same keyboard shortcut to show tracks only with data. So those two key commands will over, again, this can be under channel and track visibility settings. So there's show all channels tracks and show channels tracks with data. So under channel and track visibility. So let me know if that makes sense for you, Peter. All right, so we see Mark Raven just saying that Steinberg templates improvements of 15 Pro are so nice. Jackie Barr just says another plugin question. Is there an option to have it show recently used in the plugin browser window? Not sure if this would be a great feature to have. I don't know a way of doing that, but like when you're going through plugins, I think Wavelab, you can kind of do that. But as we go to, add an insert plugin, I don't think that there isn't currently a way to show like recently used. Sometimes I find that predisposes you to always work with the same tools instead of kind of making a choice, but I can see the workflow benefits. I'll make sure to pass that along. All right, so we see from Mark Rabin just asking for got a question for everyone. If they're on Windows, do you run a .bat file, .bat file before Cubase sessions? I never have Windows systems, so maybe I'm doing that out of ignorance. But we'll see what other people say. Adam Langford hasn't either. Gerald Ely just says, I met a guy who worked for Opcode, gave me software for Mac Opcodes. And yeah, just had a discussion of kind of some of the legacy software. I'm still in touch with some of the guys from Opcode all these years. And one of their national sales manager for years and years was, he's on the live streams here periodically, Mike McCormick. Great guy. Right, Tim Weinheimer says he deleted his Waves installer now that Steinberg added the volume plugin. I don't want to use Waves anymore. Tired of paying for the update. All right, 54 Beatmaker. 54 asks, I use independent track loop frequently. Is there any key command to do it on a selected area in key or drum editors? I think I looked a couple months ago, and I'm not sure if there is key command to activate it, but we'll give it a shot here quickly. All right, so if you're not familiar with like the independent track loop, you could right click and then you could have kind of like a track loop that's set independently of the project here. So say you turn this on here. Then you could have like while the rest of the track plays, you'd have like a one measure pattern that just kind of loops over and over again. So let's say while my project plays, we could have just a small section. I don't think that there's key command for it, but let me just look. I think it has to be done. Yeah, I don't see a key command for that. I'll make sure to pass it on as a feature request to maybe, to create an independent track loop from the selected range. Yeah, if there was like, I just. Yeah, unfortunately, I don't think there's a key command for it, but I'll make a note to pass it along. Sorry about that. Mark Raven says, thank you, Greg, for the kind of wishes. I hope your new job is the dream. So much gratitude for what you do and for willingness to share. Thank you for the kind words. And working for Steinberg's been, I guess, 3 weeks tomorrow. So it's been very utopian. So it's been wonderful. All right. So we see from, I think it's Jacques Corb, says, every time I watch you, I learn something new, unreal. Thank you. Much appreciate it. I usually learn new things on live streams too. So I learn from every question that people ask. But thank you for your kind words. It means a lot. All right. We see Michael Teams joining from Weatherford, Texas. Great to see you on. See, Gerald Ely has a big bowl ready for Michael Teams virtual ice cream. So Michael Teams has been granted a pint of Karhu from Uno Memento in Finland. Your comments. Parabot 2 is also mentioning that you could use pre-built, pre-made kits in the drum machine. That's super useful. The pre-made kits sound amazing. Yes, if you want to, you're starting here with the drum machine, you can say, let's add a drum track. And then if we just come over here to you'll see the track preset names, and there's all sorts of great kits, and some of the kits will come with their own pattern presets as well that you could load up. So yeah, just kind of click there and you could save your own as track presets that you could open up in any other Cubase session. All right, so we see that Michael Teams has granted family and myself 1 gallon of praline carrot cake ice. Much appreciated. Thank you. All right, so we see Michael Teams Ranch has been very proactive with 3 new cabs in 3 days. All right, so you just see a comment that Jazz is working on a template with a step modulator, and you can say modulating modulators gives endless options. So yeah, if you're not familiar with the modulators, we'll just give a quick overview, and especially how to modulate modulators. It's really helpful. Activates project. Okay, so let's just come over here to all right, so let's say I have a sound on my instrument here, and let's say I want to make it a little more interesting. Okay, so what I want to do is we could open up the instrument and we could apply modulators. And we could often think of modulators as kind of almost like automating automation in a way. So let's say we want to come here with a step modulator. So what do we want to modulate? So let's say maybe it's going to be we want to modulate panning. So I'm going to come over here, and then now I go to the panner, and we could draw in different steps. So let's say I want this to be 4 steps. And now as we come over here, I could just modulate. And it could get really interesting, like if you do kind of an uneven number of steps. So let's say we want to do 5 steps. So it's not playing the same pattern over and over again. And as we do this, we can say, okay, let's make this. So I'm just panning. And we can say, okay, I want this pan to be wider, and I can say let's make it more so let's say I want to do a step modulator, or I could just randomize a parameter on the step modulator as well. So I'm going to come over here. Let's just do random panner, and I want to assign this parameter, this modulator, to control a parameter within the modulation. So now, and if I wanted this to be really tight, we could just say, okay, I want this to Only so this way we could just come over and say, okay, randomize it every quarter note if we wanted to. So let's say, okay, let's just come over here to every half note. So we can just come over and modulate modulators. So you can do all sorts of very creative things like that. So have fun, experiment, make things less boring, make it more interesting. Jazz Dude just asking if people, and we were talking yesterday about having, if we should include more templates with project files that come with Cubase. So chime in, let us know what you think. All right. Paul C is giving everyone Canadian maple syrup to put on your ice cream. Nice touch. All right, so you see, Greg, can you change the background color, or better still, skins on the drum machine in Groove Agent SE? So I don't think so, but let's take a quick look just to think it's going to be fixed. So let's say if we come over. Yeah, so I think it's going to be fixed for both. Sometimes when you do skins, there's all sorts of unintended consequences that could happen. So, we can change the pad colors, but the backgrounds, there's no like skin support for it, but you could colorize the pads, and that is kind of probably more of a focal point for looking at it for long periods of time. Well, all right, so we see that Michael Teams just saying Gareth got a new guitar. Great. What kind of guitar did he get? Like when people get new instruments. Fun. All right, so we see Peter Raymond says, thanks for the key command help. Got confused by the word agents. So yeah, sometimes terminology can be slightly different. So we see Paul C just says, Greg, does Cubase update presets when new versions come out, or most of the track presets don't seem to take into account new plugins? Sometimes when they do, I would say probably, they might not have been updated to incorporate a lot of the new plugins. But I think also when they create track presets, they try to make the track preset so that it works in all of the levels of Cubase. So if you have Cubase Elements or LE or AI, that a track preset could be used in the lower versions plus the upper versions, the more advanced versions as well. It's a good point too that I'll bring up to the team. Jeremy Chatfield jumped. So we see Jackie Barr wants more templates available. It's common band instruments you'd see in a contemporary worship band, for example. Good call. Guys, do you sharing a link to Alien Sonic 7 video? All right, I'm in Yahel, says, hi Greg, can you compose a bass line with retrolog in EDM genre? So I'm not like the best at knowing what's EDM versus house versus trap, but yeah, we'll take a quick look. So let's say if I'm here, right, so let's say I have a retrolog bass patch here. Okay, and let's see if I get to the editor, I'll just start new here. So we think, and yeah. So, you could use the pattern editor for this, which is a really great function. So let's come over here to retrolog. Before I do that, let's make it into a pattern-based instrument. You don't have to, but it's for EDM stuff. This could make a lot of sense. All right, so we'll over. That sounds like without the arpeggiator. Some effects off. All right, so let's say, okay, now we're going to come over. Let's go to our editor for the track. Okay, so let's make it a melodic pattern. And I'll just go ahead and program. So one of the cool things, once we're in melodic, I could have this be monophonic or polyphonic. So let's say I want it to be in the key of D major. So I'll pick my key. Let's do D major. So, and if we want, you could just, so let's say we have nothing going on right now. Let's just click on the random button. All right, so let's say I just want to change a couple, like make it to the lower notes here and see. All right, I'm going to hold this note out. All right, and let's adjust maybe some of our velocities here. All right, now let's come over here. I'm going to duplicate this pattern and let's change kind of now we could also just come over here and do variations. And let's say, okay, let's slow this down to what it's like at 80 beats a minute. Now I could also just come here, let's double the step resolution of the pattern. have like just a lot of kind of random. So if you wanted to, all right, so let's say if I wanted to go back to one of my other patterns. Now we could also assign like play probability. So I could say like 60% of the time play that note. So we could get like some natural variations. And just like we were showing before, if we go to our instrument, so that way it's not always playing the same thing. But let's say, so I'm going to right click here, and let's go to our MIDI, and I'm going to say let's get the pattern editor for step automation. I can select my filter cutoff and say, okay, for this note, that way we can have the filter kind of open up. So now let's say I want to double the length of the pattern. So now we're doing this 32, and let's say now I want to switch it to polyphonic. So now I could take this and say, let's just add. And we can say, okay, I want to go from pitch of D3, so we can knock it up an octave through A4. So now, kind of as you play. So you could just kind of add voices and add variations. So all sorts of great stuff that you could do here. So if you want to split notes, be able to kind of do, your different patterns. And let's say you didn't like anything that you did, you want to go back, you have your undo history. So using randomness or, having it automatically fit within different scales, you could also experiment with different scales. If you want to play with modes and different stuff like that to make it a little more interesting, you can do that, or have it be completely chromatic if needed. So let me know if that's helpful for you. All right, wonderful to see Alex checking in from Mojave Desert. All right, so we see from Guy 0919 says in pull under audio plugins, Groove Agent appears if we use prepare archive. It copies all samples into the project folder. So I'm not sure. I'll just check it one more time to see. And this is if samples. So it could depend on if the samples are. Let's do a new project. I'm going to create an empty project. We'll put this on our desktop. Okay. So we go to our pool window. We don't see any audio in here. We will record an audio file. Okay, so we'll. Okay, so now we go to our pool window and we can see on our desktop folder that desktop GA sample test. Okay. All right, so I'm going to add an instrument track here. We'll add a Groove Agent SE kit. Okay, so let's go to file browser. Let's just go to favorites folders. All right, so I'm going to drag this over. Not into the channel strip, but into the instrument. All right, so the snare is on. Okay, so I didn't drag it into the project. I dragged it directly to Groove Agent. So let's go to our pool window. Okay, well, it looks like it's now going up right there. Right, so I'm not sure why it was behaving differently. So it looks like it's automatic. Looks like now it's being placed directly into the Groove Agent folder there. So let me just try a different, let's see if I change my system, not my system settings, but let's go to my Cubase settings and I'll just check the editing audio, convert to project settings. Let's see if I turn that off, if that changes the behavior. All right, so I'm going to take this loop, we'll drag it over, look in the pool. Yeah, it looks like it's going over today, but didn't go over on Friday's live stream. So I think that's good that it works that way. So thanks for bringing that up again, Guy0919. Okay, so we see Gerald Ely says, Greg, thanks for the demo on the modulators. All right, so Barn Door Recording says, question, running Cubase 15 Pro on Mac. How do you stop the Mac toolbar from coming up when you move the mouse all the way down to the bottom of the screen and you move it too far? I'm new to Mac. All right, so I have this, so like where everything is showing up here. So, and there's a dock setting in Mac OS to hide the dock until you're kind of at the very bottom. So Lawrence, if you're trying to kind of mimic that behavior where you don't see the dock constantly in the way of your transport, it's kind of an annoying thing. Let's get to your system settings. I think if you search under dock, go to dock settings. So let's see if I have it. Automatically hide and show the dock. So if I do this, the dock is always visible, but we automatically show and hide it. This gives me access to the bottom portion of my screen. And then when I go just to the very bottom and leave the mouse there, then the dock, then I usually do kind of a large level of magnification. So even if it's so that it doesn't eat up that whole part of the screen real estate. So let me know if that's what you're kind of looking for. Congratulations on your new computer. Okay, Jackie Barr just says, going through an old Mac hard drive and found a ton of files in the samples folder that are EWI or EWS. Is there a way to open these in Cubase? I don't know what they are. Is it maybe east-west files? I'll just take a quick look on my other computer here, but it sounds like maybe they're east-west files would be my guess. You might need to have take a look. I think it might be east-west. Look real quick. If that's the case, you might just have to, it's not it's proprietary format. Then we might have to get an east-west player. Yeah, so it looks like it is an east-west proprietary format for Opus player. So if you have an Opus instrument that you still have licensed, you could probably just open it directly there. So we see, Jazzu just saved me. I would have read a few comments later, saved me a lot of time. So. Okay, so you see Mark Raven saying presets are great ways for novice engineers to learn EQ curves, like how do I EQ a sax, a trumpet, maybe soon. Great point. All right, so we have Audi Lee says, question concerning recording very quiet audio sources. What dB level would be ideal coming into Cubase via the sound card? So if you're recording, you want, when you're recording audio in, and I'll just set up kind of like an example here. To kind of get an idea. So, it could really depend, like, if you're doing like a classical, solo violin recording, that's going to be very, goes from very soft to very loud. You want to be able to kind of capture those particular, all of the dynamics accurately. So you might, record at a more conservative level. So I'm just going to set this as, route this to a group track here quickly. Then we'll add an audio track, and I'll have that group as the input. Okay, so let's say I am looking at my incoming level here in the mixer. All right, so like while you're recording, I would probably, so if it was like, okay, you want to make sure that you're, so if when you're recording levels, you want to make sure, one, that you're not missing, that the quiet stuff isn't being captured or that the loud stuff isn't clipping. So let's come over, I'll just go to my control room, and let's say if we're setting our level, we'd probably want it, looking, if it was something that's going to be very dynamic, I'll just put this into loop. So if it's going to be, super dynamic, you want the performer to play kind of like the loudest part and the softest part and make sure that they're getting picked up. So if you had a very dynamic vocal where it's very soft and whispery and then goes to shouting and screaming, you may, want to have the levels down so that when it gets to the shouting part that it's not clipping and that the quiet whispery part is also captured. So sometimes if you have like a noise gate like on the microphone preamp, if it's like a channel strip, and the noise gate is set too low, it may just be kind of cutting out the sound. But like, giving yourself like, -6 or -12 dB on your meters is a pretty good place to be in general. So like this would be a level I would probably, like if I'm looking at the incoming meter, that's probably where I would want to be for recording. But it really depends on the material you're recording. So if you're recording, a punk band, dynamics, the dynamic differences may not be so crucial. It may just be kind of full on all the time, and that's perfectly fine for that genre. And then you're just making sure that you're capturing it clean and not clipping the audio recording. Okay. Bratman Studio. Rick just giving congrats to Michael Teams for apps. All right, John Barry VU says, with direct routing, where in the signal path is it taken from, and can it be changed, i.e. pre or post inserts? Cheers. I think it's post, but let's go ahead and just take a quick test. So because it's going to be treated like a group in essence. So let's say if we have our audio going on here, and I'm going to, we can think of it as a group without, without the volume control. All right, so let's say we have this, and I have group 1. So let's say currently we have this drum that's playing. Okay, so we see, let me just hide my input channels here. Okay, so this audio is going into this particular group. All right, so let's say I have this track going to my stereo outs now. Okay, so, and now I want to, via direct routing, to send it to group 1 as well. So we'll activate our direct routing. And we'll say, okay, let's send this to group 1. All right, so now it's And if we adjust this, so it's looks post fader to me as we do this, because we bring this down, that's still playing. So I know on the sends we could have it be pre or post fader, but I think the direct routing is going to be post fader, because there isn't a way to attenuate it, but it gets the signal to that other location, the other destination of the group. Okay. All right, so we see John Barry just mentioned he hides the dock on the left side of his screen. All right, and we see further clarification from Lawrence. This is Greg, actually do have it hidden. I was wondering if there is a way to make it not pop up as quickly if I overshoot the mouse to the bottom. Yeah, not sure if there's a delay. Some people can move the dock over to the right or to the left side to avoid that, but the dock sometimes can just get in a way. Not sure if there's a delay setting in Mac OS. Yeah, I mean, you could try moving it to the left or right side, but it's still always going to be kind of in the way a little bit. But it doesn't look like there's a like a delay time for the dock to appear that I know of. Sorry about that. All right, so we see from Klaus there's a Halion 7 content update available in the download assistant. All right, so you see from Lawrence says, sorry for before I was doing text to speech, didn't mean anything. I understand. When I see like Cubase spelled with the letter Q dash base, I know it's text to speech on an iPhone. So no problems at all. All right, wonderful to see Gareth on from Bilbao, Spain. Questions where you get some questions that were mailed in. Okay, so we see now that Gareth is on, we got to ask Gareth what kind of guitar he got. Michael Team spilled the beans on you. All right, so let me get to some questions that were mailed in. All right, so we had a question that was sent in. It says, "Why is there wasted space to the left of the lower zone key editor?" Okay, so let me just open up project here. Okay, so sometimes when we are editing and we have, let's say, a MIDI event, and we see back in time here to your beginning. Okay, so here's kind of a good example. So let's say we have a MIDI event here. And then sometimes we see that we have this space beforehand. And can this space be utilized for editing purposes? Because sometimes the lower zone, you may have smaller amounts of space there. And why is this just kind of blank and empty? And the reason is because we have this option enabled here to link the project in the lower zone so that when we zoom in, the two are perfectly visually in sync with each other. Now, sometimes you may not want that. Like if you want that extra space, so at this point you could just unlink the project in lower zone so that when we do editing, we can just have access to all of that area as well. So we can come over and be able to adjust and see the different parts. So just come over here, and now just want to be able to utilize that space. You just unlink the project in lower zone. Okay, we have a question. What is a clever way to record MIDI and audio without from a virtual instrument at the same time? So the one thing I would do if I was wanting to record this, I know sometimes people will want to be able to record like audio and MIDI at the same time. Like maybe, you know, their buddy came over with an iLock and they have a particular instrument that they like and they want to be able to capture it as audio simultaneously. And sometimes people want the ability to be able to edit the MIDI and audio as one part, as one single event. So if that's what we want to do, let's say I have my Rhodes here. I'm going to just add an audio track, and let's make the input coming from the track instruments. And I'm just going to say this is the input for this audio track is coming from the Rhodes. All right, so I'm going to come over here, and now as we play, I can see that my Rhodes, the audio of the Rhodes is going out directly to the audio of into this audio track. So we'll just call this Rhodes audio. And now what I could do is I'm going to right click and we'll say move selected tracks to a new folder with group track. I could just come right over here. Let's name the folder. Call Rhodes audio and MIDI. And now as I come over here, we record. So I could record just that one. Great. And when I come over here, so now we have the audio and the MIDI recorded simultaneously. And let's just show our data on particular tracks. So now when we look at this particular part, you say show event details. So I could see my MIDI notes and the audio simultaneously. So say as we record some more information on this track now. So it appears now that we have one event. This one event I can cut and split and make copies and duplicate that one event, and that is basically a folder with group track, but we're seeing and we're treating the audio and MIDI simultaneously. I could still, you know, open up my folder with a group track to see the individual components, or just see or treat them as a single entity when they're closed here. So it's kind of almost looks and behaves like a hybrid audio and MIDI event, like so. All right, let me jump back See if we have more live questions in. You guys did sharing a link to Cubase keyboard shortcuts. Rick is wondering what to do with baby calves. Oh, you see Gareth got a 2013 SG Future Tribute gushing over. Congratulations. Getting new instruments is always fun. Guys, he's mentioning he's learned what a cowboy is since watching the Yellowstone TV series. All right, let me just go back with some more questions. All right, we have a question. Hello, please tell me if there's a way for the orange monitor button on a track to automatically activate on a track when I switch to record and play on my keyboard. For me, I always had to turn off the monitor button on the previous track to turn it on the new track. It's very cumbersome. My old Cubase version Pro, it wasn't like that. Thank you very much. Jump to just a quick, I had a project here. Okay. All right. So I'm not sure if you need the monitor button activated. So let's say if I am on this particular project here, as soon as I have a track selected, I could come here and now that track will automatically play. So the monitor isn't on, but the this will just automatically pass MIDI directly to the track. Let's check just a quick. I know for audio tracks, let me just add a quick audio track here. That when a track is armed for record, it can automatically, and there's a preference. I'm not sure if this carries over for instrument tracks, but let's get to your Cubase settings. Under VST for the tape, say while, say if we're in tape machine style, switch to auto monitoring. But the MIDI is kind of automatically monitoring there, and that could be based on the preference. I think it's going to be under editing, project and mix console to enable record on selected MIDI track. So now if that is turned off, when I select a track, it's not passing MIDI because it's not record enabling the particular track. So I come here, it's enable record on the selected MIDI track. That now the MIDI will, whenever the track is selected, so, but let me know that I think that should allow you to, pass the MIDI directly there. So again, make sure that preference, again, this is under settings, editing, project and mix console that enable record on a selected track that, and sometimes you could monitor MIDI here, but not have it record enabled, like if you're doing live performance and live recording as well. Some people do that. But I think that you could just enable monitor there. Okay, next question we had mailed in. I have 5 remixes of the same song, each loaded as a track. Now the project tempo is 97, but 2 remixes are at 95 beats per minute. What is the quickest way to adjust them to 97 beats per minute to the project tempo? Okay, so let's say I'll do a quick mix down for a small portion of this song. And we'll say our tempo in this project is 100 beats per minute. Convert this. Okay, so I'll just choose a small section of the song. So I'll do an export audio mix down. Okay, so let's go to, we'll create a new project. And let's say my tempo of this project is 97 beats per minute. All right, so we play here our click track. So I want to import the file that that was at 100 beats per minute. All right, so let's say, all right, so let's say we have this kind of lined up and it's not in our project tempo. All right, so what we would need to do is to select the imported file, and first we'll go to our pool window. We'll make sure that the audio file has a tempo stamp. So we'll say, okay, it's tempo stamped at 102. So I want to say, okay, let's place this into musical mode. And now once it's in musical mode, it's going to follow the project tempo. I think our original tempo, I think it's supposed to be 100. So now whatever tempo I placed the project in, so let's make it 122. So make sure that your audio file that you imported that's at 95 beats per minute, that you have the tempo stamp in the pool set for 95 beats a minute. Make sure that it's in musical mode, and you get to the pool, Control or Command plus the letter P, or Media menu to the pool window. Then once it's in musical mode, it will follow your project tempo 97 beats per minute. All right, so our next question mailed in. Does Steinberg intend to offer an offline AI solution for handling the loop collection from Mediabase? Because many loops carry the same names there and they're very hard to locate in an existing project. The project window doesn't indicate exactly from which loop the collection it is. An AI solution can not only find loops faster, but also, like in the old loop mash, determine which loops fit together, bass, guitar, drums, etc. So loop mash didn't necessarily like have like an AI solution to, it didn't have a function to figure out which loops fit better. It just kind of mashed them together. So there wasn't any kind of intelligence with that. So true, there are a number of loops that will have similar names. So let's say, if we go to look at your loops and samples, but I think that most of them, so let's say if we go to a drum loop, so a lot of them may have, like here we can see we go to the lo-fi library, that this will also start off with lo-fi drum loop, lo-fi, so you kind of know that you're in a particular library. Let's come over to Midnight Dance. So some of these may be more descriptive of the genre. So I'm trying to see if there's a way to see if there is a duplicate name function. But so I'm not sure, like if it's for Media Bay, I assume it's Media Bay you're referring to, and not Media Base, which I think is used for tracking radio station airplays. And there, so when you say carry the name, so if you double click, I mean, that will carry the name over from the file and create the track. So I don't know if there's any duplicative names here. The names may be similar, but probably with all the content, I believe that all of the content would have kind of a unique name. But it's kind of an interesting concept to have, to find similar style things. I've seen some tools do it and then really kind of fail at, trying to do an analysis of these two loops are related, and you listen to it and it's like, no, they're not at all. So, but I mean, you could always choose, like, as you have a file in, so let's say if I take this file in, you could always select, if you have problems with kind of like your naming, you could right click and activate the description. And here you could, even if it's a different name, you could give it the name of a project. You could rename the audio file directly there as you import it. So I know some people will do that just so that, at that point they could tag which particular project that loop was used in. So, that way you can say, oh, this track we did 7 years ago, what was that loop? And they can say, look for drums from this project or with this name. So some of that information could be stored already in the existing metadata of the media bay as well. So if you come over here, you could see, once you go into your media bay, that there's lots of different content. So if we come over here to your VST sound folder and say, okay, we're looking for, let's say under Dark Planet. And so here we could see that, there's all sorts of find loop library. Come over here. And let me just set all those. So we could see that, each of these files is tagged extensively, with a lot of metadata. So you can see exactly which library, the genres, what type of category the sound is in, how many bars and beats, the tempo. So, you could add your own user categories here by going into setup. So you could look at all of the audio files being used in a current project and add a tag to it as well. So, but sometimes when you're dealing with, I know people have, 50,000 loops and sound effects and stuff as well. All right, let me jump back to live portion here. See if we have any live questions. TrackQuest Music says, "Hi Greg. Other than the Cubase YouTube page, is there another advanced Wavelab tutorial even paid on the internet that you recommend?" So I think one may have been done by StreamWorks Audio. Let me see if they just did one recently. They saw like something come across my social media feeds. Yeah, so check out maybe StreamWorks Audio. Because they have different courses as well. Yeah, so here's the full course preview. So just a couple months ago with that. So yeah, maybe check out the StreamWorks Audio. But and again, if you have Wavelab questions, just feel free to always ask. And we brand it as a Club Cubase, but it's really any Steinberg product is fair game to ask. So you see Garris has had to sell all of his Gibsons in 2013, so it's quite poetic. Nice to get one back. Congratulations. Yeah, feel free to email me a picture. I'd love to see what it looks like. Garris saying Pablo is buying plugins. Good choice too. So we see Hoy Boy Official. Hi Greg, greetings from warm LA. Is there a way to quickly copy one track's color and paste it to another series of tracks? So I don't think that the color is something that could be an element that could be copied. So let's say if I want to, let's say if we add a number of audio tracks here, just looking at it, I can say, okay, I want like the color of track 3 wide to all of those. I mean, you could just come over to the color palette and, just select your different colors. But I don't know of a way to, if we duplicate a track, we can, so let's say if I have this track and I'll hold down my option control, so let's say I want that color for this particular track. So let's change the color here to greenish. Okay, so if I duplicate this track, the color should automatically be carried over. Let's see if I go into full mixer view. I want it like this color applied to all of these tracks. Let's hold down. I could just come over. Say if I do Q-Link, so we could have multiple tracks. Let's see if we could colorize all these at once. Yeah, so I think you could do it from the project window. You could globally, but I don't know a way to copy the color of one track to apply, but it's easy, I think, to, just, if you're doing new tracks, to duplicate your existing track to maintain the same color. And I think if you saved it as a track preset, that the track preset would contain a color. Let's just do a test. Okay, I'll do new project. Yeah, so it doesn't like the track preset maintains the color either. So I think the colors would have to manually be done, or you could use a project logical editor preset to change all of the colors accordingly. Okay, just comment. All right, Soul Sound Official says, hi, Greg. Question: how to fix, replace, and previewing samples using the trackball from the media to replace a kick drum, for example, and drop it over a preview. Is there any key for the trackball? So make sure that you also, I'm not sure, like, if you're trying to replace something like in like a sampler track, so like Groove Agent and the sampler track have like where we could place some, different, where you could do hot swapping. So we'll show that. So let's come over. Say I'm looking for kick. All right, so I'm going to come over here. Let's create a sampler track. Okay, on this sampler track, we'll make quick one measure pattern. Do the 4 on the floor. Switch it. All right, so let's go to our sampler control. I'll just put that to a less annoying tempo. All right, so we go to our sampler control here, and then I think we could just choose the hot swap. So you could use arrow keys to navigate. And then once you find the sample, just come right over here, click on apply that. And so you could go into kind of hot swapping mode if you want and temporarily replace. So just using kind of the up down arrow keys, and then you just want to click on the check mark to replace it, and similar in Groove Agent. So it could depend on So you could use your mouse to select, or your trackball to replace different samples like that. All right, John Barry VU asks, hi Greg, when trying to color part of a chord track, is it possible that is selected using the right click context menu colorize event does not apply to the chord track, but to the chord track in a divided track list? Okay. Let me just go to a chord track, have it. Okay, when trying to color part of the chord track that is selected using the right click context menu, color does not apply to the chord track in a divided track list. All right, so let me just do a divided track list. Okay, so let's say if I have this selected, it could be, so let's say I have all of the chord tracks selected there. Let's just choose a different color. So it could be that you may have to just kind of switch. So let's say I now have this as the active zone. Then I could switch those events there. When I get to this zone, I can change chord tracks there. Let me just reread it, make sure I'm understanding it correctly. When trying to color part of the chord track that is selected using the right click context menu, colorize event does not apply to the chord track, but the chord track in the divided track list. Great, so let's come over here. Coloring it from here. So it's when I hold down a control command, we say colorize, and it's like it's working as expected. Let me just try changing that when it's not in the divided track list. You may have to click, if you're in the divided track list, you may just have to kind of click and make sure that one is active. So, so let's say we come over here to our divided track list, but that's, like this. Say it's going to be different than the selected one here. So that once you kind of select events in one of them, that will make that particular divided track list the active one. But let me know if I'm misunderstanding, John. See, TrackWest Music says stream works very weak, pay $50 and it was horrible. Sorry to hear that. I'll see if there's anyone else. I'll do some more research on some WaveLab kind of paid tutorials. All right, Rick asks, says, hi, Greg. Greg, being all things Cubase, what is the most insane or wildest thing you've ever heard of someone doing or using Cubase? Seriously. I was just watching videos of this guy who does like key editor art, who plays, kind of plays, I think what he probably does is he kind of draws in notes. It's pretty clever, actually. But he'll go into the key editor. Here, and just kind of popped up in my social media feed here. And what he does is, he'll just draw. I think what he probably does is he kind of makes like key editor art, and then he plays it in real time, and we'll come up with a picture of Batman or something. So he just kind of creates art with notes here in the editor. Like I think Donny Osmond did like really interesting things for his Las Vegas show. Like where he was automating the front of house console. He was doing all of his own in-ear mixes in Cubase. He was triggering, the drummer had like a little, M Audio Oxygen keyboard. He would start the song in Cubase and be backing tracks. So for like kind of a show production, to see it working on kind of a big Las Vegas show like that, and Donnie's like incredibly smart and technical. And one of the nicest people you ever meet, just a great, wonderful human. So I saw him like how he kind of utilized it was a bit out of the box, of having an entire show being done that way. I think other really kind of unique. I think it's always interesting, people, using features, unintended for other things. I'm trying to think anything off the top of my head. Over the years, I mean, lots of, seeing, like in the Hans Zimmer live stuff was really interesting. He just called Cubase the 19th member of the band because, it was just switching all of his different thing, like all of, where he's able to carry his library, his personal orchestral library, and be able to utilize that for the live concerts that he does. Trying to think anything else that's really kind of unconventional. It's always fascinating watching like Teddy Riley work, or Daryl Pearson is really clever of kind of just manipulating data in very musical ways, treating Cubase like an instrument. But I'll try to think of some other things, not off the top of my head, but, people are always doing brilliant things with Cubase and take a feature that's designed for something else and completely repurpose it for their own needs and think that it was invented for them. All right, so we see the media bay limits is 100,000. What happens when you exceed that? What gets left out? So I think it will, it may not just show the particular data, or it may not be able to add that. And you see what, can it be increased? So I'll make sure we haven't had too many people complain about it. I haven't had anyone complain to me that they reached more than 100,000 loops or presets. I'm sure it will come, but it hasn't happened yet. But it could be, like, I'm not a developer by any means, but it could be one of those things where, after a certain point, it could take, so much more memory that it's, could be kind of, hurtful to your workflow overall. All right, so you see Gare says, will do for the picture of the guitar. Looking forward to seeing it. I'm like the worst person to go guitar shopping with, because whenever I go guitar shopping with a friend, they always end up buying a guitar and I don't. So, so Gare says he's got the crazy E-Tune system. Those were selling really inexpensively because people didn't want the robotic tuners. And I remember first time I saw that was Peter Frampton had like one of the earliest prototypes of that, and he would be playing, and then he would get this like stupid grin on his face, and he would, push a button on the back of the guitar, and you could see it go into open tuning for like a slide guitar solo, and then he would push it back, and all of a sudden he wasn't in open tuning. And you could tell he was just seeing who the guitar players were, if they figured out that he had kind of a robotic tuning system on his guitar. But it was effective. All right, uno momento wants people to whack the like button. Sometimes gets confused and use the Logic particle editor, as long as I get it to work. John Barry VUs has mentioned some other good Cubase, so doing lights. So Donny Osmond had the lights going, and effects and opening curtains. So. Okay, we see from John Barry says, I got that wrong. I meant the arranger track. Let me just go back to John's. John Barry says it's been a long time. Tangerine Dream uses Cubase Live. So yeah, and Paul Hasslinger is a friend of mine. He's a member of Tangerine Dream and great, wonderful film composer. John Barry VU just mentions Brian Eno said the studio should be considered an instrument, so true of Cubase. So let's go back to some questions. We had other questions that were sent in. So we had we're discussing yesterday or in the last live stream on Friday about the like creating a mix, like separate export mix downs for one that included melody and one that was just backing tracks. So let's say if we want to recreate that, let's come over here quickly. Great, so let's say see if I have this file sounding a little better, maybe in a different project form. So we could share this. All right, so let's say if we go back. All right, and so the question says after streaming, I tried to direct routing with summing mode as you suggested. While it works routing audio to multiple outputs, I'm running into an issue with my template. My orchestral template routes all instruments through section buses, shared effects buses, trumpets, reverbs, delays, parallel compression, and finally into a single orchestral master bus where my master